My name is Lawanda. My family and I have been at KCC since 2011. Since coming to KCC, I have learned faith like never before. Prior to KCC, I was churched my whole life, but I had no knowledge of a relationship with God, no knowledge of faith, no knowledge of God's promises. So it's just been amazing since I've been at KCC. I started battling depression and anxiety at the age of 16. And by the time I got to KCC, I had already been in that battle for 15 years. I was on the maximum doses of medications. I was on 7 different medications every day just to function as a normal human being. Some of the medications I was taking twice a day. They were at the maximum doses and they still weren't helping. But just simple trips to the grocery store would trigger an anxiety attack. I would have to leave the grocery store, couldn't finish my shopping because I felt like the walls were closing in, things were getting dark. Just sitting in a large room or even in a closed up room, just being around people all together would trigger an anxiety attack. Sometimes the anxiety attacks would be so bad that my husband would have to drive me around in the car just to try to get me to calm down. I first met Pastor through my counseling program through my employer at that time. And when I met Pastor, he did reassure me that we were going to beat this both spiritually and physically. He was the first counselor that had ever told me that. With any other counselors, anytime I mentioned God, they just kind of brushed it off and act like he didn't exist. And during one of my counseling sessions, Pastor told me that he had just started a church and he would love for us to visit. And one Sunday I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go and try that church out. I'm gonna go and see what it's about. And when I walked in the door at Tuckasegee Elementary School is where we were meeting at that time. And when I walked in the door, that was not a gymnasium. Just the overwhelming feeling of love and the peace of God when I walked in the door. I walked in, the first face that I saw was First Lady's face, and she smiled. I'd never had a First Lady that I actually saw before. So that was just reassuring. Just the whole atmosphere and environment of love was just reassuring. So we continued to attend for a little while, and one of Pastor's messages, we had been attending for probably about a year or so, and I remember one of Pastor's messages, he said something to the effect of, I have a hard time understanding someone that calls themselves a Christian and they're depressed. And I remember immediately thinking in my heart, he just doesn't understand what I have going on. Pastor just does not understand. But before that thought could settle in my heart, he was quoting Philippians 4:6, where the Bible tells us to be anxious for nothing. And he was also quoting 1 Corinthians 2:16, where it says that we're supposed to have the mind of Christ. And I was just floored because I had been churched my whole life and I had no knowledge of these scriptures, no knowledge of the promises of God, that no, he really wants me to be well. He really wants me to have the mind of Christ. And it was probably about a year or so after that, in December 2013, when Pastor called a corporate fast. He called a 10-day fast. And so I made it my point, okay, on this fast, I am going to come off of these medicines. I am going to get delivered from depression and anxiety. And I made that the point of my fast. And I remember praying at the beginning of the fast, God, I want the mind of Christ. And about halfway through the fast, on December 10th, 2013, I was driving home from work and I realized, wait a minute, I haven't taken any medicines all week long. Like no medicines at all. I didn't wean off of anything just that quick. God had delivered me and freed me from depression and anxiety that quick. These are medications that the psychiatrist told me, you're gonna be on these medications for the rest of your life. There were no side effects, there were no withdrawals, nothing. God had delivered me from depression and anxiety. I had no desires for those medications and I have not needed them since that day. If you're in a health battle, whether it's physical or mental, my advice to you would be to fully trust God. When His word says that there is nothing impossible for Him and nothing too hard for Him, believe it. It is true. I'm a living testimony. And also, believe you're a man of God. Do not get offended at the truth, because when he said that, I could have said no. He just doesn't understand and gotten offended and missed my entire blessing. Be open to the truth. Don't get offended by the truth. Listen to your man of God, especially our pastor. He has the results and we know that he hears from God.